the week. Let's dive right in with some fantasy analysis for the Cowboys. Some clear starters, as we know. Ezekiel Elliott in the defense. To me, the guy that's surprising is Cole Beasley. 9 catches, over 100 yards, and 2 scores last week against the Jaguars. To me, Prescott's finding a rhythm, finding him. I think he's doing really well to establish PPR value, and to me, he's a very solid PPR wide receiver 3 or flex play. For the Redskins, they're very limited in terms of fantasy options. Jordan Reed's one, which he is right now, and Chris Thompson, who's a little banged up. So if he gets healthy and gets active for this game, I would certainly play Thompson. But let's go to Jordan Reed, because when this guy's on the field, he's one of the better tight ends in the league. Vernon Davis scored last week against the Panthers. It's time for Reed to step up and show that production, especially while he's on the field, because we know he's going to miss a few games this season because of injury. So it's time for Reed to step up and improve on these numbers from 2018. What I like in this game is the Redskins to take the game 24-17. I like their wins a little bit better than the Cowboys' wins on the season, as they've knocked off the Panthers and Packers at home, while the Cowboys have now beaten the Jaguars at home. But remember, the Jaguars struggled and lost to the Chiefs. They didn't score any points in the first half, and they really struggled against the Cowboys. So give me the Redskins 24-17. So for all that, we'll see what comes out on during the weekend on Sunday. Hopefully the Redskins and the Cowboys give us a good one. For more coverage throughout the week, check out the FANTOM Facebook page, like our YouTube channel, and enjoy the game this coming weekend. Amari Cooper here with an all-out blitz preview of the Week 7 showdown between the Redskins and the Cowboys, the bitter rivals in the NFC East. As always, like our YouTube channel and check out our content on the FANTOM Facebook page throughout the week. Let's dive right in with some fantasy analysis for the Cowboys. Some clear starters, as we know. Ezekiel Elliott in the defense. To me, the guy that's surprising is Cole Beasley. 9 catches, over 100 yards, and 2 scores last week against the Jaguars. To me, Prescott's finding a rhythm, finding him. I think he's doing really well to establish PPR value, and to me, he's a very solid PPR wide receiver 3 or flex play. For the Redskins, they're very limited in terms of fantasy options. Jordan Reed's one, if he's healthy, which he is right now, and Chris Thompson, who's a little banged up. So if he gets healthy and gets active for this game, I would certainly play Thompson. But let's go to Jordan Reed, because when this guy's on the field, he's one of the better tight ends in the league. Vernon Davis scored last week against the Panthers. It's time for Reed to step up and show that production, especially while he's on the field, because we know he's going to miss a few games this season because of injury. So it's time for Reed to step up and improve on these numbers from 2018. What I like in this game is the Redskins to take the game 24-17. I like their wins a little bit better than the Cowboys' wins on the season, as they've knocked off the Panthers and Packers at home, while the Cowboys have now beaten the Jaguars at home. But remember, the Jaguars struggled and lost to the Chiefs. They didn't score any points in the first half, and they really struggled against the Cowboys. So give me the Redskins 24-17. So for all that, we'll see what comes out on during the weekend on Sunday. Hopefully the Redskins and the Cowboys give us a good one. For more coverage throughout the week, check out the FANTOM Facebook page, like our YouTube channel, and enjoy the game this coming weekend. Amari Cooper here with an all-out blitz preview of the Week 7 showdown between the Redskins and the Cowboys, the bitter rivals in the NFC East. As always, like our YouTube channel and check out our content on the FANTOM Facebook page throughout the week. Let's dive right in with some fantasy analysis for the Cowboys. Some clear starters, as we know. Ezekiel Elliott in the defense. To me, the guy that's surprising is Cole Beasley. 9 catches, over 100 yards, and 2 scores last week against the Jaguars. To me, Prescott's finding a rhythm, finding him. I think he's doing really well to establish PPR value, and to me, he's a very solid PPR wide receiver 3 or flex play. For the Redskins, they're very limited in terms of fantasy options. Jordan Reed's one, if he's healthy, which he is right now, and Chris Thompson, who's a little banged up. So if he gets healthy and gets active for this game, I would certainly play Thompson. But let's go to Jordan Reed, because when this guy's on the field, he's one of the better tight ends in the league. Vernon Davis scored last week against the Panthers. It's time for Reed to step up and show that production, especially while he's on the field, because we know he's going to miss a few games this season because of injury. So it's time for Reed to step up and improve on these numbers from 2018. What I like in this game is the Redskins to take the game 24-17. I like their wins a little bit better than the Cowboys' wins on the season, as they've knocked off the Panthers and Packers at home, while the Cowboys have now beaten the Jaguars at home. But remember, the Jaguars struggled and lost to the Chiefs. They didn't score any points in the first half, and they really struggled against the Cowboys. So give me the Redskins 24-17. So for all that, we'll see what comes out on during the weekend on Sunday. Hopefully the Redskins and the Cowboys give us a good one. For more coverage throughout the week, check out the FANTOM Facebook page, like our YouTube channel, and enjoy the game this coming weekend. Amari Cooper here with an all-out blitz preview of the Week 7 showdown between the Redskins and the Cowboys, the bitter rivals in the NFC East. As always, like our YouTube channel and check out our content on the FANTOM Facebook page throughout the week. Let's dive right in with some fantasy analysis for the Cowboys. Some clear starters, as we know. Ezekiel Elliott in the...
What's up? I'm Ari Temkin. This is Dalton Miller, and this is Showtime. right here on Phantom, which puts you at the center of the Dallas sports discussion. Dalton, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Excited to be here. We've been trying to get this set up for a little while now, and my schedule worked out to allow me to be here today.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Everybody, make sure to follow Dalton Miller on Twitter. He does great Cowboys insight, and he's doing some work with us at Phantom, so we're really excited to have him. All right, so go ahead if you haven't already. Hit the share button. We're going to start previewing Cowboys and Skins. Really interested to hear what Dalton has to say about what he saw in film from the Washington Redskins. And, I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Like, it's a must-win game for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Every week. Mm-hmm. It's the newest, here's the latest must-win for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and, I mean, that's kind of the way that the season's going. When you're hovering around 500 like we are, like the Cowboys are right now, it's going to be the narrative every
That's why the NFL is as popular as it is. Because most teams hang around 500.
Yeah.
So most teams you have to win.
Yeah.
And most fan bases sort of teeter on, like, should we just blow this thing up and start from scratch? Or, wait, they won, and now it's time to continue to, to keep building towards something.
And it's a weekly thing, you're right, because, last week, before the Jacksonville Jaguars game, people wanted this team to lose out so they could get the coach fired.
Right. It was like, well, how soon can they fire Garrett? When are they going to get rid of Garrett?
Then they beat Jacksonville by 33, and now it's, can they win the division?
All right, shout out to everybody watching. I'm Ari Temkin from 105 through the Fan. You can catch me as part of the Cowboys pre- and post-game show. Dalton Miller does some great work for the Cowboys Wire, Phantom, and other publications as well on the Cowboys. Hit the share button. Post your comments. This is an interactive show. It's all about you and your participation. So whatever you say, we'll answer and get to it. Joe Tranchina in the house. Danny Easley says, what's up, Ari? I'm still sticking to Zeke getting 2 rushing touchdowns this weekend. Cowboys win 31-24. Keith Stone says, every game's a must-win. Jesse Garcia says, do or die. Win and save the season. Lose, it might as well tank it, get that first round.
And actually, Jesse kind of has a point here because the numbers bear it out. If they win and go to 4-3, I think the number was like 52% chance to make the playoffs. And if they lose and go to 3-4, it's like a 13% chance to make the playoffs. So this is the biggest percentage jump or loss this week.
Interesting. On the Dallas Cowboys Really Real fan page, Chris Olson says, if there's one thing Dak can do on a regular basis, it's beat the Redskins. Yeah, he's 4-0 against the Washington Redskins in his career.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and Jason Garrett is 11-4 in his career against him, dating back to 2010, and then 6-2 since 2014.
Might be time for an extension for Garrett.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what we heard last week. There might be one.
Wayne Markley says hello. Hello, Wayne Markley. Patrick Prescott. David E. Maybe. Oh, no. Sorry. He's tagging people. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you doing that. There's a guy that streams this show named Dakota Stiegel who doesn't like Dak Prescott, and then there's a guy named Patrick Prescott who doesn't like Prescott, so it's kind of fun.
Patrick Prescott
doesn't like Dak, and Dak doesn't like Dak.
Interesting.
Robert Home in the house. Tino Rodriguez says, just show up. Pete Ayala says, all they have to do is play with the same creativity and passion from last week. All right, let's start there. What did you see from them last week that was different?
Well, I think the biggest thing about this offense is you can't keep trying to fit the square peg into the round hole. You can't try to make Dak Prescott a purely pocket passer because that's not what he is. He's used to using his legs. That's what made him successful, a Heisman Trophy candidate in college. He had 536 carries in college. Let him use his legs. He looks more confident on the field when you get his legs going early.
It's probably his best asset as a quarterback right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we talked about inconsistencies, can he read defense, the struggle with accuracy. So, like, the one thing that he seems to have going for him is his ability to run, and then the Cowboys' ability to use zone read or read option off of that.
Yeah.
Which, but I hate to go, well, they just need to run Dak more because it seems like they tried to do that in other games. It just didn't work as well. Like, Seattle's the one game that sticks out where, like, they tried the read option, but the linebacker, Bobby Wagner, was just kind of staying home.
Yeah,
and not really forcing, wasn't forcing them to make the right read.
Yeah, and a lot of those times, and I saw that when I was watching the Carolina game against Washington, where the linemen were unable to get to that second level. So Cam Newton, instead of those 7, 8, 9, bigger gains, he was getting those 2, 3, 4 yard gains and taking hits from linebackers, which isn't something that you necessarily want to see your quarterback do.
Right.
But if it's going to lead to those chunk yardage plays, if they do get to the second level, if they do block for that, get those big plays, I mean, that's how you're going to win games for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You're going to have to risk that possibility that Dak gets hurt if you want to win.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, too, is I think there's like I don't know. I don't want to say it's like cheating, but I think it hurts his development, right? Like for the Cowboys to be at their best with Dak Prescott as the quarterback, he's got to be more of a pocket passer, right? You're not going to run read option to a Super Bowl.
But I think that the issue is I think that you can, because there's no way that this team, the way it's constructed currently without a number one, and even, if we talk about, the possible trades, even then I don't know how much good it does, because Dak just cannot play the position the way that he needs to make
so
the most
the
out of
only
having a
chance
number
right now, and probably in the future of Dak's career, the only chance that he has to put this team in position to win a Super Bowl would be running the ball.
You got to use his legs, yeah. That's the only way. I don't see. There's a reason why he was a 4th round pick, and it's because of his inabilities in some capacities as a passer.
Yeah. On the Dallas Cowboys report page, Tracy Foster says, "Thank you. I've been saying that Beasley and Prescott match up together. I know you hate hearing me say that. I don't hate that. Will Lee play on Sunday? It looks like he's on track to. What's your feeling on?"
They're talking like he might. You don't need to rush it. You really don't. I mean, you have the bye week afterwards, so
plus you have Van Der Esch and
Jalen Smith who are playing well. So it's one of those injuries where you don't want to rush it back, because if it's not 100% healthy, you have a bigger chance of re-injuring it. And a lot of people are saying get rid of Lee. You don't need him after this year, but he's still the best player on that defense when he's healthy. It's not even close.
Right, because there's things that Leighton Van Der Esch can do that Sean Lee can't do from a purely athletic standpoint.
Yes.
There's a lot that Lee can do that Van Der Esch can't do in terms of calling the plays, getting defense aligned properly, and that's just going to be part of the development of Van Der Esch. And he's probably got to learn watching a guy like Sean Lee play. So you have to sort of balance. Okay, Sean Lee gives you an advantage of knowing where guys need to be and how to get guys in the right position versus the athleticism and ability of Leighton Van Der Esch. So, I mean, that's a tough call. Yeah. It's a very tough call.
I mean, if he can play, if he's 100%, then absolutely put him out there. But if he's not 100%, even if he's 90%, there's no reason to rush him out there right now.
All right, on the Dallas Cowboys America's team page, Ricky Williams gives the laughing emoji. Is that the real Ricky Williams? Tamika Banks with the heart eyes emoji. Curtis Stark says, "What's up, Ari? This will be our first win streak of the season, 28-17 Cowboys." Arya Sultanzed says, "Amari Cooper, we need to get him." Your thoughts on Amari Cooper?
So at first, I immediately said no. Immediately, I was like, if the Raiders aren't going to take a 4th round pick, there's no reason to take him. The more I thought about it, the more I am still thinking about it, and I'm actually going to sit down a little bit and watch Amari Cooper. But for all of Dak's misgivings, one thing that Amari Cooper can do is run routes and gain separation. I think that if he comes
which
here,
is something their current receivers can't do.
Not on the outside, no. And part of the issue with Amari is part of the same issue we had with Dez is the drop issues, and that's something that there is. I mean, he will produce. I mean, he can be a 1,000-yard receiver even in this offense, but fans are going to try to run him out of town the first time he drops a pass going over the middle. It's the way that it is here in Dallas.
It's just to me, it's going to cost too much. Like if they want to, I mean, I know Rappaport reported they want a 1. They're not going to get a 1. No. Even a 2.
The issue that I have, and that's the big thing on Twitter. You see guys like Marcus and talking about spending a 2 on him, and why not? But the Cowboys have drafted so well recently in the top 2 rounds that there's no need for me to want to do that. You have receivers, not a lot of top flight talent in this upcoming draft now that DK Metcalf is out for the year, but there's gonna be a ton of guys in that day 2 range like there was last year.
Yeah. Well, and then it's all salary part of it too. I mean,
it's so much cheaper. You're going to have to pay Amari Cooper after the next year. You have him for
right,
two.
The fifth year option is $14 million.
Yeah.
But if you're trading a second round pick for him, you're gonna extend him.
Yeah.
There's no reason
you have
to give up that. So I mean, then what's it going to cost there?
The only thing, and you know, Jeff brought it up on the radio yesterday. The only thing that you could do is bring him in, and if it doesn't work out, try to flip him and get rid of him.
What about DeMaryius? DeMaryius Thomas is the guy that I've been talking about, just because it just like here's a guy that produces despite bad quarterback play recently. He's going to be traded after he's going to be released after this year anyways. Because they drafted Cortland Sutton and he's $17 million against the cap next year if you keep him, but if you cut him, it's only $3 million. So like of dead money. So like my whole thing is like call the Broncos, see if they'll take a fifth or a sixth for him, and treat him as a rental.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know a lot about how the Denver Broncos work in their front office. I'm still trying to figure out what John Elway's doing there. I haven't quite figured that out yet. So I don't know how open they would be to the possibility of getting rid of him, even though they're going to cut him after this year anyways. Now,
like Amari Cooper's the better player, but I'm just talking about like what's it going to cost for a draft pick and what's it going to cost for money. And
I don't think that there's any hurt in making the calls and just asking what the price is. I don't think you're doing your due diligence if you don't.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Jay Navarro says, I'd rather sign Dez back. Cooper's overrated and not worth a first or a second, not even a 3. I'd spend a 4th, nothing lower. Well, Dez isn't coming back, and Amari Cooper's a pretty good player. I mean, part of the lack of production recently has got to be due to the decline of their offense, and specifically their quarterback. So, I know, like, Michael Lombardi said yesterday that he heard that he's not sure that Amari Cooper loves football or likes to play football.
Did he love football his first 2 years when he had over 1,000 yards? Like, there are a lot of professional football players that don't love playing football.
So true.
But guess what? They go out there and they do it because it gets them a paycheck.
That's always the funniest thing to hear. Like, doesn't love football. Okay. I mean, it's 1,600 yards
like your job?
second year.
Like, do you like your job wherever you work?
Right.
Probably not. And
there are people that are really good at their jobs that don't really like their jobs.
Exactly.
But I mean,
but they're good at it.
It's 1,600 yards receiving in his second year.
Yeah, and if you make good money, why would you not do it?
All right, let's see here. What else we have? Tim Garcia says Cooper has been a no-show this year and kind of the same last year. Not too many good games out of him. Chris Bennett says Michael Lombardi is trash. Yeah, I mean, look. Amari Cooper's good. Amari Cooper is a really, really good receiver. Yeah. I mean, he's the last rookie receiver to get over 1,000 yards receiving. The last one. And there hasn't been a rookie receiver to get 1,000 yards receiving since Amari Cooper did it years ago.
And I don't think people understand how difficult that is of a feat because you see, and we're seeing it right now with Michael Gallup on this offense, is it takes time for these wide receivers to get it. You know, we're not really seeing it with Calvin Ridley, but that's the type of player that they are. Their games immediately translated because they had the nuance in their ability
there's no rookie receiver that had 1,000 yards last year. There's no rookie receiver that had 1,000 yards the year before that. That's how hard it is. Yeah. It doesn't happen every year. It's rare that it happens. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, Gallup could be a number one. I don't know that we've seen anything that would indicate he couldn't be. But I just think expectations for him are probably skewed because people saw that he had potential and thought he could come in immediately and become Dez or a legitimate X. And I just don't know that that's the case. Especially his rookie year. Like you said, it's probably the toughest position. Quarterback's the toughest. But, yeah. I mean, wide receiver is one of the toughest positions to transition to in the league. Mm-hmm. All right, what else is everybody saying? Make sure to hit the share button if you haven't already. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Dalton Miller, who's doing work with us over at FANTOM, as well as the Cowboys Wire. Does great film breakdowns. Hopefully we'll get him to start doing those on FANTOM as well. So make sure to follow him on Twitter if you are not already.
So Walt on the FANTOM page said, "Hey Dalton, are you there to talk about JG's extension?" No, I am not.
Walt's got the hot takes. Yesterday he was telling me that the Spurs were going to miss the playoffs and the Mavs are going to make the playoffs. And then the Mavs went and lost to the team that had the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, not great.
Keith Stone says, any notable injuries on defense? Haven't checked up on the injury report lately. You're talking about for the Cowboys or for the Redskins? The Cowboys are going to be fully healthy, it looks like. I mean, Sean Lee could play. Malik Collins will play. David Irving will play. Trying to think who else.
I don't think Tavon Austin will play.
Tavon Austin will be out.
Looking like that might be a little bit more serious than we originally thought.
Kind of sucks because he's a huge piece to their offense.
Yeah. And he could have been a really big piece this week with the defense that they're playing. I don't know if we're going to talk about
absolutely
get into that more a little bit later, but he could have been big this week.
Let's see here. Tracy Foster on the Dallas Cowboys report page says Dak can scoot in under other teams crawling. Thanks. Okay, not really sure. Barry Carter says we need a wide receiver. Whoops. We need a wide receiver that can spread the field. That opens up everything, especially if the double team. Sure. I mean, they need a true number one. They need a new true X. They said they didn't. They do. It was as true when this offseason when they said they didn't as it is now. I just don't think it's going to happen because the Cowboys are stubborn about personnel acquisition.
Yeah.
And they're married to their own guys to a fault.
Yeah.
Completely unwilling. And look, it's tough to expect any football team in season to make a trade. It's just it's a tough thing to do in season, especially for a team that doesn't really make moves outside the organization anyways.
No.
The big test will be this offseason because, I mean, Romo's dead money comes off, Witten's dead money comes off, Des Bryant. I mean, they're not going to have the dead money that's been hampering them in their salary cap for the last decade, basically.
Yeah.
So they're finally out from underneath it. So will this organization finally make the changes necessary to go out and fill the holes through free agency?
I don't know. Steven doesn't seem to have any interest in outside free agency whatsoever.
He does not.
Jason Garrett likes his guys. So I really don't know. I mean, we're kind of in a different outlook than we have been in recent years because of all the dead money, because of all the money that we were spending on Tony Romo. We had money to spend, and if they go out and don't spend it, what are they doing? Like, are they trying? I know that you have to sign your own guys and you have to extend guys, but you have to go out and fill needs. You have to try to get a safety. You have to try to get a wide receiver. And as good as Jeff Swaim has played so far this year,
right,
you need a tight end. He's a good tight end too, but he is not a tight end one.
Keith Price says, I think we need wide receiver, but they'll wait for the draft. And that's kind of the ultimate point here is it's difficult to find a guy in the draft that's going to come in and immediately, be the guy. That's like the best teams in the NFL, teams that win titles, the majority of their team is built through the draft, but then they shore up different holes through free agency, and wide receiver is one of those. Like, that's why, can they make a move at the trade deadline to bring in a DeMaryius Thomas or an Amari Cooper? Sure, they could, but the preference would be go out and spend some money in free agency and bring in a wide receiver because you're just not going to go and draft a guy that's going to make an immediate impact. And the guys that do are rare. It's just rare to find those guys. And Ridley this year is definitely helped out by Julio Jones and the type of offense they're running.
Absolutely.
So, Amari Cooper is a good example of, that's a guy that, without much help around him, comes into Oakland immediately and has success. Those players are just so rare.
Yeah.
So, and the Cowboys ecosystem right now on offense is probably closer in line with Oakland's when Amari Cooper was a rookie. They don't have Julio Jones that you can go and draft to Calvin Ridley and then pair him with and be okay, or Matt Ryan, or the type of passing offense that Steve Sarkisian has in Atlanta. So, that's an area where, sure, they should probably draft a wide receiver at some point. I mean, I guess now they probably should look at drafting a quarterback in the first round. We'll see. But certainly in free agency, that's where they should be looking at free agents, at wide receiver, at safety, and at tight end. So we shall see. Patrick Prescott says Noah Fant. Let's make it happen, Ari. Have you studied Noah Fant at all?
I've watched a little bit of Noah Fant. I haven't really gotten into the tight ends yet. I'll probably do that for my next week's draft wire piece. But from what I've seen from him, he looks like kind of a, in that same mold as Evan Ingram. Maybe not quite as twitchy an athlete, but that big slot mismatch. I don't know how he fits here with the way that the offense runs in line, because you're going to want to put him in line here because that's
what they do.
The type of offense that we run. And can he get to that point? Is he strong enough? Does he have the body for it? Yes. But that's not something that he excels at right now, and that's something that they're going to make him do here.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably been the issue with Rico, right? Like, the fact that he's got to be an inline tight end, and they can't just line him up out wide, and you know.
For all of Rico's faults, he's still better than Blake Jarwin.
Well, and I played this, the 3rd and 1 play-action pass to Jarwin against Jacksonville. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the one where he gator-armed.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like a perfectly thrown ball that he just completely dropped. It was great play call, great play design, great execution. Dak put the ball exactly where it needed to be, and Blake Jarwin dropped the pass.
And he gets blown up in the run game too. I mean,
there's literally no purpose for him.
No, there isn't. I mean, you need to. You drafted a guy in the 4th round, and he was supposed to be the blocker. And obviously, he doesn't have the play strength yet. But
right,
why not make him your tight end 3 and go
if
with
Jarwin can't catch and he can't block, then what's the point?
There is
like
none.
See what Dalton Schultz can bring, because otherwise, like, then you should just cut. You should cut one of them. Like, cut Dalton Schultz if he's not any better than Blake Jarwin.
Yeah, absolutely. and cut one of the two, and that gives you another wide receiver that you can bring in if you have to bring Tavon Austin to injured reserve, which is something that they've been talking about. And you can bring Noah Brown back without having to worry about anything else. And see what Bryce Butler can give you maybe. I don't know if they have any plans for him in the game plan or not. But
God, as bad as this wide receiving group has been, like, so much of their success on offense is based on either, teams having to account for Tavon Austin or Tavon Austin. I mean, like, so much of their pre-snap motion is dependent on Tavon Austin. He gives them a deep threat too in that capacity. So I mean, it's going to be tough for a team that's really struggled with their receiving core without their main guy, I guess, because Tavon's their number one from a standpoint of, he's the guy that goes deep, that is in the intermediate routes, underneath routes, jet sweeps, and so much of what their offense is doing is based on either him getting the ball or the threat of him getting the ball.
Exactly. He's the only one that brings that threat, that when he's on the outside, you think he can go anywhere.
Right.
Michael Gallup has actually done a pretty good job getting vertical and making those big plays, but he hasn't done well on the slants and the comebacks, and he's just not. He hasn't been as twitchy as what he was in his college film. He's trying to play physical like he did in college, but it's more difficult to do here. The corners are just better than they were, in his competition at Colorado State.
All right, Curtis Stark says, okay, the topic is what's it going to take to beat the Skins? I say 25 carries for Zeke, no turnovers, and stay ahead of the chains. And if not Beasley, one of the receivers has to step up big. Okay, so that is the question today. What will it take for the Cowboys to beat the Redskins on Sunday? Thumbs up if you think the Cowboys win. Heart emoji if you think the Redskins win. Dalton, your thoughts?
I think that the Cowboys can put up a 30-burger pretty easily on this defense. It's highly rated right now, but they have a ton of issues with communication. When you use pre-snap motion, they've just had complete breakdowns in the secondary. They're an aggressive defense, so even if they don't have breakdowns, if you run vertical concept on one side of the field, so if you have an outside guy run a 9, there's a lot of times where even Josh Norman doesn't get physical with the line of scrimmage, and he gives clean releases on the outside, which is something that when they're running cover 2, you can't do. But he gives that clean release if you have somebody in the flat in front of him, because he's trying to come up and pick that ball or make a big hit on a running back or an inside receiver running that route. So when you do that, you allow that outside route to be open. And if you do another inside concept, if you run Jeff Swaim up the seam, that safety has to sit at least for a second and make sure that his buddy or the linebacker is going to follow him. So there's ways to beat this team for big chunk plays. another big issue is their linebackers don't gain good depth, especially when they have underneath routes. With the big game Cole Beasley had last week, they could even use him as a decoy, run him on shorter crossing routes, and have Jeff Swaim or Blake Jarwin, hopefully not, but Rico Gathers sneak behind those linebackers and make big plays up the seam.
You're just talking about they don't communicate well and they play zone.
Yes.
So that's very bad.
Yes, it's very bad.
If you play zone defense in the back end and you don't communicate well as a defense, you're going to be in trouble.
Yes. I mean, there was multiple plays. I mean, the record breaker against the Saints. It looked like they were supposed to be in cover 3, and Josh Norman just sat in a cover 2 in the flat, and the safety was in the middle of the field, had no clue what was going on. There's another play where in the Carolina Panthers game, DJ Moore went into a bubble motion behind Cam Newton in shotgun and ran a bubble on the other side, and nobody followed him. The entire defense stayed in the middle of the field, and he was over there by himself. Cam Newton threw a completion over the middle of the field, but there was nobody with DJ Moore. It would have been a walking touchdown. There's miscommunications, especially when it comes to guys that go in motion. It looks like they're trying to do some pre-snap checks, and whatever it is, they're trying to be too complicated, and they're just not getting it. And they're having huge gaps in the coverage.
Their defensive front is pretty good, and especially in the middle, against a rushing offense. That's the part of it where it's like, okay, well, obviously they want to rely on Zeke, but they will have advantages of the passing game.
Yes, and I know that might be scary for you guys to hear.
After last week, it's a little bit less scary.
It is.
We've seen them have some success in the passing game.
And a lot of people like to bring up that Dak only had 183 yards in that game, but he had 151 in the first half. They didn't throw the ball in the second half because they didn't have to. He could have easily had another 250-yard game there. But they could do the same thing this week. They really could, as long as they protect. When they protect, he's a different player because he has confidence in that offensive line. He did last week.
Do you think this is a pass rush to be scared of? I mean, Kerrigan's the one guy that stands
exactly.
out.
Kerrigan is the guy. Jonathan Allen can get a push inside. You don't really have to worry a ton about Deron Payne at this point in his career. Against the run is where you worry about them because those Alabama boys in the middle, they can move the offense. And with Deron Payne's strength, that's something to watch against Connor Williams. He runs the nose. He's the one technique there, but if he's lined up between Connor Williams and Joe Looney, we could see some problems.
The one thing that I noticed about them is they don't turn the ball over much. They're +4 in the turnover ratio this season. So, I talked about this yesterday, but Kirk Cousins has in his last 54 games, he's turned the ball over 55 times. And has 18 fumbles in that stretch. Alex Smith in the same stretch has, I wrote it down, it was like 26 turnovers in that same stretch. So, Cousins can give you 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, but he can also give you, he gave you 55 turnovers in 54 games. Yeah. Alex Smith doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't fumble. He doesn't throw picks. They're one of the least penalized teams in the NFL. They've had games where they're at 6.6 penalties per game, which is middle of the pack, but it's like 2 games they've been horribly penalized, and then the other games they seem to not be penalized much. So it's either feast or famine from them, but ultimately still 6 penalties a game is not horrible.
No, not at all.
So they don't beat themselves. That's the thing is it's like the reason they've won 3 games is because they're just they play it safe for the most part on offense.
And that's Alex Smith's career.
Yes.
I mean, he is, and that's why you hear a couple comparisons between Dak Prescott and Alex Smith. Now, Alex Smith was the number 1 overall pick, and Dak was a 4th rounder. But they do have a similar aggression style when it comes to taking shots downfield. And there were times last year when Alex Smith actually did push the ball downfield, but he had Tyreek Hill to do so. And that's not really
Travis Kelce.
And
the weapons he had in Kansas City and the offense they were running with Andy Reid.
Yes, and you're seeing it this year is Chris Thompson's the biggest weapon on that offense when it comes to the passing game.
And I'm not sure Jamison Crowder is going to play. It's a guy who's killed the Cowboys in recent history.
Yep.
I mean, Adrian Peterson's played well. And
Banged up.
Right, but it's crazy. The other piece too is they're running like just a traditional conservative team, right? Like they don't turn the ball over a ton. They're not penalized a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And when they win, like they're averaging in their wins, they're averaging over. Let me see. In their wins, they're averaging 160 yards rushing per game, and their 2 losses, they're averaging 52 yards rushing per game. So, like Adrian Peterson, his ability to run the football is basically the direct line for them winning games.
Yeah. I don't see them being able to run the ball against this.
You don't think so?
No, and that's the one thing that gives me, other than obviously the history that we have recently against the Washington Redskins. I mean, we have their number. We have a defense, and their success is from running the football because their passing game is pretty anemic, just like ours.
Yeah, it's a very similar offense they run.
They
run a lot of similar plays.
A lot of 2 tight end sets. They use the one thing that does worry me a little bit is we run a lot of Tampa 2 where we have Leighton Vander Esch just turning and sprinting down the field with guys running over the middle, and at times, he's a little bit late. We saw on the touchdown to D.D. Westbrook last week, they had set that play up a couple times where Leighton Vander Esch tried to turn and run with him, which, I mean, that's a 260-pound man running with a 200-pound wide receiver. And it worked the first 3 times they ran it, and then they finally ended up getting the touchdown on it. But Jordan Reed is a phenomenal pass-catching tight end.
Yeah.
So that worries me up the middle a little bit. But other than that...
The idea there is... Look, Leighton might play well 3 or 4 times on that play, but they run it 5 or 6 times, and one of them goes for a touchdown. Like that's the thing; they're going to stick to it because even if that's continually putting Leighton Vander Esch in the wrong light.
Yes, and it's nothing that he is at fault for. He's just tasked with trying to keep up with guys who are a little bit quicker than him, and at this point in his career, he doesn't always read his run and pass keys right away. So a couple of times he was a step or 2 late turning and running and was able to actually turn and run with D.D. Westbrook for a little while. Which
is impressive.
Which is extremely impressive for a 260, and I can't emphasize that enough. He is 260 pounds.
The most impressive play I saw by him. No, that was Jalen, but that was ridiculous too. In the preseason with that guy for Cincinnati who was ran the fastest.
John Ross, yeah.
Yeah, where Jalen Smith was with him step for step down the field. I was like, my God, that's incredible. For a guy that couldn't turn.
Yeah. Couldn't
go sideline to sideline last year, for him to be step for step down the field with John. Now, John Ross made the completion, but Jalen Smith was right. It was crazy, but Jalen Smith was right there. So that's, I think, what makes their linebacking core so good. But you just don't want that. They make those plays once every now and then. It's good, but you're right. The Tampa 2, that you have the linebackers running the middle of the field, and that's just a tough cover for them consistently.
Yeah.
All right. Solar says Cousins is better than Alex Smith, and our defense is way better. Dak is 4-0 against them. Cousins is better, but he also turns the ball over a ton more, and that's where Alex Smith is better because Kirk Cousins giveth and Kirk Cousins taketh.
Yeah.
And that's. The Cowboys were +2 in the turnover ratio against them in one game last year and +4. So they were +6 in the 2 games they played in the turnover battle last year against Washington.
And that's just not going to happen this year.
Right.
They're not turning the ball over, and our team doesn't turn the ball over. And they did last week. You were playing Blake Bortles.
Right, and the game was already out of hand at that point.
Yes.
So, you're playing a guy that has had... Blake Bortles had 9 picks on the year going into the game in 5 games. Alex Smith has, I think, 4 picks, something like that. 3 picks, something like that. 2 picks. So, one of the biggest reasons the Cowboys are 4-0 in their last 4 against Washington is because of that turnover battle. Especially last year. I think in Dak's rookie year, it was even throughout the 2 games they played. But last year, it was +6. So, Washington is just overly... they don't make mistakes. They don't beat themselves on offense. As Dalton Miller said, on defense, they do make mistakes. They're constantly undisciplined. They're constantly not being on the same page. So that's where you think that even if the running game is not cooking for Zeke, there still should be opportunities for them in the passing game. But then not having Tavon Austin, I can't believe I'm saying this, is going to be a huge downgrade for the Cowboys passing offense.
Yes.
Let's see here. Robert Holmes says, run Zeke at Norman, punish him, then go to the outside. Norman will be rattled and not tackle well for a big gain. How do you run Zeke at Josh Norman? Just run him to the outside constantly?
Outside zones. I honestly don't believe that that's a horrible idea to try to get on the outside against this defense because, like,
it might not be a horrible idea, but you know Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan.
Yeah.
They run a little bit outside zone.
They run a little bit of outside zone. I think that the best course of action is to run those zone reads. You know, that split zone action is something that works quite well. There was a play where in the Saints game against the Redskins, it was actually Taysom Hill at quarterback. So it was kind of a wildcat situation. But in the zone read, he kept the ball, and if he would have given it, they didn't have good gap discipline on the play, and it would have been a 60-yard touchdown for Kamara because there was nobody in the middle of the field, and Hill just...
Is that something you've seen watching film on them throughout the year? Because the Saints game is tough because it was like they just got caught in it. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you play at New Orleans, especially in a game like that where Drew Brees is going for records, it can just collapse on you, especially with a very conservative offense.
Yeah.
Did you see that in other games too, though?
Yeah, the Carolina game, I mean, even though they won it, a lot of it was just Cam Newton playing very poorly.
That and turnovers.
Yeah.
Carolina muffed a punt on the first drive inside their own 20. Another drive that Cam threw a pay. I mean, the turnovers just killed him.
Yeah.
And it just constantly gave Washington life. I don't know what the turnover ratio was in the game, but you could tell they got their lead. They were up 14-0 in that game because of the turnovers. And once you get a team that can run the ball, that's conservative on offense, you give them a little bit of a lead, and there's a good chance they're gonna win the game. And to your point, Cam was bad. I mean, Cam Newton was really bad in that game.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. I'd like to see more tosses to Zeke. No one thinks the Redskins will beat us. That's from Solar. Yeah, but remember, nobody thought the Jaguars would lose to the Cowboys.
Yeah, nobody thinks. I want to bring this up because it was brought to my attention on Twitter today. Is nobody thinks that the Redskins are going to beat us except for Vegas, who has moved the line to give us 2 points. So they think that the Redskins are going to win, even though 59% of the money is going towards the Cowboys.
But that happens a lot. I mean, there's so many Cowboys fans. A lot of I feel like Cowboys and Tiger Woods always have ridiculous bettors.
True, but when all the money is going towards the Cowboys, you would think that they would move the line towards the Cowboys and give those odds, make them a little bit worse. But they're actually moving the spread the other way.
Charity Russ says hello. Hello, Charity. How are you?
Hello.
What else we got? Who do you think will win? Thumbs up for Cowboys. Heart emoji for Redskins. What will it take for the Cowboys to beat the Redskins? Their passing game and not turning the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two things that are going to be important. Obviously, they want to establish Zeke, but the strength, seemingly, of Washington's defense is in the middle of their defensive front. Zach Brown's a decent linebacker, especially against the run. We know Ryan Kerrigan's a good pass rusher. Preston Smith, trying to think of who the other pass rusher. I mean, their opportunity to win this football game is handle the ball, don't turn it over, because that plays. Washington's not going to turn it over. And if you win the turnover battle in the NFL, you win 80% of the time.
Yep.
There is no greater statistic that has a higher propensity to correlate to winning than the turnover ratio. So, and that's simply put, that's why Washington has the 3 wins they have. They've won those games because they've been plus in the turnover ratio. So the Cowboys cannot throw picks. They can't turn the ball over. If they do, they're going to lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
That, and then they have to get their passing game going. Because as you said, there are holes in the zone defense that Washington runs. They don't communicate well, and I mean they don't really have Norman's a good corner, but he seems to be over the hill. DJ Swearinger's never been. He's a big hitter, but he's never been a good cover safety.
No.
And I mean I can't even remember the names of their other corners. I mean that's
they have Fabian Moreau is their slot corner, and then they have
exactly.
I had it up too. I can tell you the number. The number's 23.
Tracy Foster predicts a 17-13 Cowboys win. I'm going to make my official prediction tomorrow. I was a bit off on my prediction last week.
Yeah. I think everybody was off on their prediction last week.
Even the great Brian Broaddus from DallasCowboys.com, who is 5-0 picking Cowboys games
Was
this year.
5-0, yeah.
He's now 5-1.
5-1.
Ray Pierce gave me the middle finger. Why, Ray? That's not very nice.
Are you sure it was the middle finger?
Believe so.
Let me see.
Middle finger emoji right there.
That definitely looks like a middle finger.
Also, Michael Lafferty says Dalton
thank
seems
you,
cool.
Michael. I try.
He just seems that way.
Yeah. Yeah, trust me, my wife would tell you that I'm not cool.
What will it take for the Cowboys to beat the Redskins? Mike Wellman. I believe, Mike, you've said this before.
Quentin Dunbar is their other corner.
Quentin Dunbar, of course.
Yeah. I knew it was number 23, but I couldn't remember the name because it's so forgettable.
Mike Wellman with the smart-ass answer to score more points than Washington. Mike, I believe you made that joke last week.
That is the key, though. You cannot win without scoring more points.
It's difficult to win without scoring more points.
Yes.
What should I ask Dak Prescott this week? Last week I asked him if he is allowed to audible at the line. He said yes. I'm sorry. Alan said he didn't know if you could.
Yeah.
Which the receiver should know if the quarterback can't audible the line of scrimmage because the receiver needs to know the play.
You should ask Dak this week if he thinks that Allen Hurns is going to be able to run faster this week. Or
if Allen Hurns will attempt to catch the ball. There was one pass. It's like, is he sandbagging? Like, is he trying to?
He needs to be off the field. To be quite honest.
And that's like the number one reason why they should trade for DeMaryius Thomas, beyond the fact that you get him on the cheap and you can cut him without much dead money, is to cut Allen Hurns.
Allen Hurns is bad.
He reminds me, he's like the Nolan Carroll signing of this year.
Yeah.
Like, veteran who's like, oh, this guy could make a difference. And then
thought he could.
Right. And Nolan Carroll was cut at after training camp, I think, or very shortly after. And Allen Hurns is just bad. And like, he had the most, beyond Cole, he had the most targets without a catch. 7 different receivers caught a ball for Dak in the Jacksonville game, and he didn't have a catch, but he had like 6 targets.
Yep. He had a great pass breakup, though.
He did. That was his best. It might be his best play as a member of the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, he had was it the Giants game where he had a couple third down conversions?
Yes, and he had the touchdown catch.
Yeah, he was wide open on that one. It was
great play design.
Yeah, it was great play design. You won't hear me say that often, but
look, give credit where credit's due. They've had some decent. I mean, they're not the most innovative offense. They're running very basic offense, but at times they use their pre-snap motion to get good play design. I mean, we saw that a lot against Jacksonville. I wouldn't say a lot, but we saw a decent amount. I mean,
in the first half,
I wouldn't call the read option play design.
No.
That's more of execution on the quarterback, running back, and that's the other part to this where Kansas City can be explosive is with their read pass with their zone read. Is there a difference between zone read and read pass, read option?
So with the zone read and a read, it all depends on how the offensive line is blocking it. Just depends if it's a zone
blocking
scheme.
or man
zone or a man scheme. But the
zone read is zone blocking.
Yeah, and then there's split zone where you have the tight end actually comes across the field, and that's something that the Cowboys have been really successful on. That's what they ran for the touchdown the other day with Dak Prescott. That was some split zone. It was a split zone read, and the Jeff Swain was able to get across the field and make a block on the corner to kind of spring that, and Dak was able to run on the inside hip of Blake Jarwin, who was actually standing in front of a defender for once, and then cut off the other side of his ass, and he was able to take it to the house. Another thing with this kind of it being a good defensive line but not being an overly athletic defensive line is when you get into 2nd and 10 situations where you kind of miss if you miss a pass on first down, run a QB draw. That's something that they ran well against the Houston Texans.
Yes.
We didn't see it this past week. But when you get into those situations, spread the field out, especially if you get a man look. Because you have your guys can just run off the defenders, and if you can get
it's easy to diagnose. Where zone, it's less easy to diagnose. But if it's man, okay.
Yeah, and it's less that you have to break down against, because if you have guys running it off and they fear your wide receivers or are doing their jobs, they're not going to be looking back to see what the quarterback is doing anyways. So that's something that you can run to pick up some chunk plays when you need chunk plays and you don't feel like you have a good situation passing the ball.
Yeah. So it's funny because like before this past game, they were averaging 16.6 points per game, and it felt like Thursday's the day for the offensive coordinator, Scott Linehan, to meet with the media. So I wonder if today's going to like walk out there and just put his balls on the table and be like, what up now, guys? We're going to put a 40 on that defense. Because he's been very like trying to defend himself basically the whole season. So, and like after the game, you know, Jason Garrett always comes out like at the end of the post-game show, and he just had this like, how do you like me now, boys? Like it was just totally like all these critics.
Overly confident Garrett.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind seeing it, but then once you get overly confident Garrett on Sunday after the win, and then it's back to how we doing, guys, Garrett, the next day, and then you just don't want to listen to him anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dalton. Appreciate you, man. Everybody, make sure to go check out Dalton Miller on Twitter, Facebook, and wherever else he is, doing great work. What's the podcast called?
Talking the Star, which is a part of the Blogging the Boys podcast network.
Nice.
So you actually, you have to search Blogging the Boys in your Apple or Google podcast.
Excellent. And then, of course, check out his work for the Cowboys Wire and doing our Cowboys watch parties. You're off this week, but you'll be back next week with Walt. So really enjoy that, and hopefully we'll get you more and more involved with what we're doing in Phantom. Mm-hmm. Thank you to everybody, the Showtimers that stream this show and are part of the show every day. We couldn't do it without you. You make this show what it is. It's an interactive show. It's the most interactive show out there on the Dallas Cowboys. So thank you to Solar, Anthony Donaldson, Jason Wright, Keith Price, G. Garcia, Keith Stone, Jay Navarro, Chris Bennett, Jesse Garcia, Neil Fauver, Ray Pierce, Michael Lafferty, Joe Tranchina, Robert Holm, Wayne Bledsoe, and Steve Eason, Mike Wellman, Curtis Starks. Appreciate you guys. Thank you all for what you do. Thank you all for being a part of the show. I'm back tomorrow to give you my prediction for Cowboys skins. Plus, we'll have a film breakdown as well, as I'll take a look at what is working for Washington's defense and how the Cowboys can expose it. All that's on the way. But for now, we're out. Peace.